Okay, versatile vigilante, man. Young Vince, Uncle Vinny, we're here. Back July 2021, middle of the summer. We're out here, man. Shout out to anyone who enjoyed that Coda and Fax Kane interview from a couple of weeks back. That was a super dope podcast. Shout out to them. One thing, definitely really good to experience for me because I see that there's some technical shit we could really improve here. Audio, video, different types of questions, different types of conversations. So only up from here. That was a super dope episode and really excited to see what we can do going forward. And you see a little gang on my chest right here. We got some cool shit coming up apparel wise, video wise. So keep your eyes open, stay fucking tuned for this. Got some good stuff coming up. I promise. Young Vince never breaks a promise. So today's episode, though, just classic solo, back by myself. I want to jump right into it, man. I had an idea to just do an episode where I really talk about some of the different people and brands and just in general ideas that have influenced me in my life to do this podcast, to evolve the brand, just overall talk about some cool stuff that's influenced and inspired me. And the reason I got on this train of thought, I was watching Joe Rogan's podcast with Quentin Tarantino. Anyone who's watching, highly recommend checking that one out. I'm a huge Tarantino fan. I'm, of course, a big Joe Rogan fan, and I thought they killed it with that episode. Tarantino's just a great guest, a super interesting guy. One of the best directors of all time in my eyes, at least. It's subjective, but I definitely am a big Tarantino fan. And one of the things I really fucked with about that interview was, man, Tarantino, he's not a politician. This guy, he's a artist. Like, he just cares about making what he wants to make. He answered some really interesting questions about, Rogan asked him, do you think you'd be able to make like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs in today's climate? And Tarantino said, I don't like that attitude because that's a defeatist attitude. It's basically saying, oh, they won't let me make it, so I can't make it. And he talked about how in the early 90s when he made his films, all the film executives and people were like, oh, Quentin, I don't know if you can make this, man. This is pretty wild. And he's like, well, fuck it. I'm making it. And if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And I really like that attitude. And I feel like that's what I look for. Just people that are doing it, man. Not everyone's going to like it. And to say, oh, you're not able to do this because people will get upset. To me, that's a cop-out. I don't really think that's the way to go about it. I think to take chances, you never know what comes from it. I respect that, so really influenced this episode for sure. And it just was, it was like a nice little boost for me to see when other people other than yourself are giving you some energy, just saying things that really click with you. Like when someone you respect gives you feedback and gives you advice, it could actually be quite useful, man. You obviously have to be careful. You can't listen to everyone's opinion, especially if you don't really give a fuck what they have to say. But there are some people that actually have interesting perspectives and you could learn from them. So really recommend checking out that Quentin Tarantino podcast. Good advice in there and just good life lessons, man. Just about, you don't have to really subscribe to anyone's point of view, anyone's opinion. You do what you want to do. If you believe in it, go for it. Take the chance. Might be consequences, might be some fallout, but there's some fun in that too. It's no fun just doing what everyone else says to do, right? So that's the influence of this episode specifically. Other reason I really want to talk about some influences, man. A positive influence, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, positive influences. A positive influence can really help give you a little bit of a nudge, a little bit of a nudge in that right direction where you see someone else doing something cool, you appreciate what they're doing, gives you that inspiration, man. It's super important, especially today, because social media, news, all that stuff is flooded with bullshit, man. It's flooded with some nonsense. And I don't know about anyone else, but when I watch that shit, it just turns me off. It's like, fuck, this did nothing for me. It didn't help me at all. So when there is something out there that's helpful to you and you kind of feel what someone's saying or doing, I just think it's super important to show that some love, address that, appreciate it because it's helpful, man. Can't do all this shit on our own. So when someone is doing something that we can really feel, I just think it's dope to show that love, and that's really what I want to do today. There are some people doing great things. There are some people taking these chances, and I really appreciate that on a famous level and on a local level, just people coming up, making the best things, they're making the best out of their situations, trying to put food on their table. I'm not just talking about artists and athletes and stuff like that. I'm talking about everyday people that are hustling and trying to do what they got to do. Important to show them love, man. There's a lot of bullshit around, and we address that. It's important to address the good stuff too, man, because the good stuff can really take you far, give you a nudge, give you some assistance that you need to keep it moving for yourself and continue to grow and improve and keep it moving, man. Keep fucking riding this wave. So that's what I wanted to say about that. When we talk about my actual influences, though, I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to mostly talk about podcast influences. Man, I'm going to bring it back all the way to high school. I want to give a big shout out to fucking Be Real from Cypress Hill, man. Be Real, he's an OG for sure. He's been around since the early 90s. Everyone knows about Cypress Hill. But man, this guy was super ahead of the game with podcasting and just online videos. If anyone subscribed to Be Real TV on YouTube, this guy's been consistently putting cool ass videos out for over 10 years now for sure. Anyone is a fan of the Smoke Box, bro, the Smoke Box is one of my favorite shows ever, not just podcasts, like favorite shows to watch in general. It's Be Real sitting in an old car, like a nice caddy with like a rapper, podcaster, anyone. A lot of people have been on that show and they're just blazing it down in there, having a really good conversation. Low budget. It's pretty much just they set up a camera and some mics and fucking get some loud and have a great discussion and shit like that at an early age was super influential for me. I'm like, man, Be Real, yeah, he's super famous and he's a huge rapper, but anyone could do this right now. If you have a car and you want to just talk and set up a microphone, you could do this, man. And same with the No Jumper podcast. No Jumper is huge now, but when I started watching it, it was super underground. A lot of my, I guess, aesthetic in this office, in this studio, definitely influenced by that, because the early No Jumper episodes, it's literally just Adam, one camera, and one guest or however many guests at a table, and that's it. They have a discussion, very free flowing. You could tell that shit was not scripted at all. I just love that DIY vibe, and I think it's super important to show that sort of stuff some love, because man, I watched some late night comedy show, like a fucking Jimmy Kimmel show. Everyone knows how I feel about Jimmy Kimmel, by the way. He's not an influence to me at all. Influence of what not to do, bro. Fuck that guy. I've said that many times on this show too. But you know, you watch the Jimmy Kimmel show, or you watch some other big setup, big corporate conglomerate type show. It's like, fuck, man, this is $1 million budget over here. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? This is not something that's DIY. This is not something that I could just set up in my basement, you know. But then you watch No Jumper, or also shout out Joey Diaz, Church of What's Happening Now. Like, these are guys that just set up their own show, didn't need to ask for anyone's permission, and some really classic stuff has come out of these types of shows. And you know that I really can't express enough how important those guys are. They were for me at a younger age, and they still are, man, because it shows the growth. You never know what something can turn into, and if you have something you want to say, you could just fucking say it. No one's holding a gun to your head. You don't have to say it, but if you want to, you can. And going back to that Tarantino point, yeah, some people won't like it. Some people aren't going to be a fan. It might offend some people. It might piss somebody off, but who gives a fuck? If you believe in it and you want to do it, why not say that shit? Try it out. There's countless examples of people that have been successful from doing that. Adam 22, just one. Be Real, just one. Joey Diaz, Joe Rogan. Those are just some examples, man. There's a million examples from a lot of different fields that you could point to. They're everyday guys, and they just made some shit happen and tried it out and continue to grow. And you never know what could happen from that, man. And if you look at each of those shows from years ago to now, they've all changed, man. They've all progressed. They're all different. not the same as they were. And I also think that's a beautiful thing too, man. Everything progresses, everything changes. You keep going, you grow as a person, grow your own brand. Just really cool for me to see that type of progress in these types of shows and these people that we see, you know, on YouTube or on television or even outside, you know. I love to see that shit. And another big shout out I want to give, man. This isn't really content related, it's more just attitude related. Someone who I always will check out for their interviews and whatever podcasts come out. Damon Dash, man. Dame Dash. Anyone who doesn't know who Dame Dash is, do your Googles. If you know who Dame Dash is, you know why I say he's a big influence. Dame Dash, the ultimate individual, the king of probably rubbing people the wrong way. But the thing about Dame that I love, his message, he always has a reason for giving that message. He means well with what he says. Some people really don't fuck with that guy because he could be rude, man. He could be an asshole, real shit. If anyone doesn't know who Dame Dash is, I recommend checking out his Breakfast Club interview, especially his first one. Classic shit. And he dropped some gems in there. But if you're looking at it from someone who's just taking it personally, you'll be like, oh, he's an asshole. But he's actually dropping a lot of gems in that interview. That's like now like a 6-7 year old interview. I remember the day I watched it, hugely influential. Just put me a bit more on a path of, yo, be your own, you know, be your own boss. Even if that means you're still working somewhere else or you're doing stuff where you're not the actual boss, being the boss of your own life, deciding what directions you want to go in, you know, not just letting everyone else influence you in a direction you don't want to go. So I really got to shout out Dame Dash for that. That was something where as a you know, I was in college when I watched it. It really stuck with me, and I continue to look at that as inspiration, man. You know, he talked about how some people will not be feeling what you're doing, but you just got to do it. Put your own money up. If you have a vision, go get that. And I love that shit, man. I think it's super valuable, especially since we live in a time where a lot of people on television and in mainstream media, they're just apologizing for everything. They're just, you know, I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want anyone to feel bad. Someone like Dame, he's like, fuck it. You might feel bad about what I'm saying, but I'm saying what I want, bro. I'm doing what I want. You don't like it, fine. And I fucking love that shit. Shout out Dame Dash, man. Big supporter of his. Right or wrong, that's a guy who I'm gonna fucking say I always will support, unless he does some really weird shit. That's a different story. But for the most part, I gotta show love to Dame Dash, man. He's definitely got that independent spirit that I fuck with, you know. So shout out to Dame. Shout out all those guys that I talked about. Adam22 from No Jumper, Be Real, Max Bigavell, of course, Joey Diaz, Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan, I want to address that too. A lot of people are, oh, Joe Rogan, man, he's fucking just a caveman and this and that. Yo, I don't agree with everything Joe Rogan says or does, but I respect the platform that he's fucking built. You cannot say he hasn't built it, man. There's still videos of his original podcast where he's in his basement with his friends. Like, bro, he really built this shit. Now he's eating off it, as he should, man. He built that shit. He did he did what he wants to do, and people obviously like it, including myself. So people that don't like Joe Rogan, you're entitled to that opinion, but say he's just a fucking caveman and, you know, he enables all this bullshit. I think that's ridiculous. And I also think it's ridiculous if someone hangs on to every word he says. There's balance, and you need to understand that there's no one that I've addressed here today where I'm 100% a fucking disciple of them. But there's people that have done some really cool things, and I always want to show them love for that, because there's a lot of people doing some complete bullshit. So the people that are really doing some good stuff, I want to show that love. It's important to understand that it's not all bullshit out here. There's people really making moves. There's people really doing some good stuff, and that's important to address, in my opinion, man. Shout out to everyone putting in that work. Some people don't see it, and if some people don't like it, it is what it is, man. Do your thing. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today, man. Influences, inspirations, little rant for you there. Shout out everyone I talked about, man. Also, Bob McCowan, local Toronto sports radio. Also, big shout out to him. He definitely influenced me. Other than that, man, look out for the Vigilante merch. gonna be outside for real. Gonna be surprised at some of the stuff you see. It's definitely different than what we typically put out. And look out for some new guests coming on, some improved audio, improved video. I'm going nowhere but fucking up. Telling you that right now. I'm not folding this tent up anytime soon. Again, also, if you have some feedback for me, any topics you think would be cool to talk about, hit me for sure. But that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today, man. July 2021 episode. We're out here. Vigilante season always. Gang, gang, gang.